I drove about an hour into the night, where I set up camp at the Glamis sand dunes.
Sick. Let's go, baby.
Just as the sun peeked over the tallest sand dune, I had all my gear laid out, and I was ready to carve through the sand. I've got to admit, riding a camel through the desert would be pretty cool, but I still don't know if it's better than flying a paramotor. I flew a mile into the sand dunes without a soul in sight, until I came upon a lone photographer perched upon a tall dune, capturing the shadowy contrast as the sun rose across the dunes. It had been a progressive summer of flying. With each new flight, I felt like I was adding a little flavor to my style. Confidence in my gear and abilities was high, and with excessive confidence comes complacency. The bad news is, I clipped a sand dune. The good news is, it was just a sand dune. Both of my prop tips exploded, but thankfully, I was able to limp my wounded aircraft back to my truck. Game over. Or was it? I stopped at these ancient petroglyphs while I called several local pilots in search of a new propeller. Eventually, I punched Surprise, Arizona into the GPS and arrived at Air Force Paramotor's shop. I managed to find a new prop within hours. After pulling out my wallet, Brian stopped me and said, "It's yours. Go. Enjoy the rest of your trip." Beyond thankful, I shook his hand and headed towards Sedona for some night hiking. Brian, if you see this video, I can't thank you enough. After leaving both my prop tips and pride buried deep in the Glamis dunes, I was ready to break in the new propeller. I woke up in Marble Canyon the next morning, and what better location to do so than the iconic Horseshoe Bend.
Let's go.
Make it seem like it's been ages, and tomorrow's sun will build this great sky. I love this country dearly, I can feel the ladder clearly, but I never thought I'd be alone to try. Once I was outside the station, selling red and white carnations. We were still alone, my wife and I. Before we met, we saved my money, brought my dear wife over. Now I work to bring my family stateside. Off the boat, they sail a while and scatter across the coast. Once a year, I'll see them for a week or so. I wrote stars to go off.
If I'm being honest, Flying areas that most people could only dream of seeing up close and personal was beyond amazing. Flying inverted within a canyon above the Colorado River was pretty unique. And checking out Lake Powell and the Glen Canyon Dam from a bird's eye view made redemption taste sweeter than ever. About an hour downstream, Glen Canyon turns into the Grand Canyon, so I decided to check that out next. Just a hop and a skip to get up here. After seeing more beauty than my mind could process for one morning, I jumped back in the truck to cut across Utah. Bryce Canyon National Park is always a perfect way to break up the drive down Highway 12. This is just another one of those places you have to see in person to fully appreciate the bizarre landscape. I was back on familiar ground, where I finally gave myself a chance to reflect on the crazy series of events that had unfolded over the last couple of days. And to that, I cracked an ice-cold Dos Equis to commemorate what has to be one of the most interesting road trips in the world. After the hike, I grabbed some greasy bar food in Escalante before claiming my favorite campsite on Spencer Flat Road. That didn't work. Launching in the middle of the high desert definitely presents its own set of challenges. Thinner air means running further and faster, and using a poorly maintained campground littered in desert vegetation is a great way to add plenty of snag hazards to your routine takeoff. Don't blow a launch very often, but here we are. Let's go, come on. We got this. Little pep talk. All right. Okay, boys, okay. Soaring over the reddest of rocks was a pleasant reminder that this was a real-life game of the ground is lava. With no cell reception and no way to navigate back to my truck had things gone south, this was by far the most dangerous flight I'd ever been on. But, like anything in life, with high risk comes equally high rewards. That's amazing! Flying to a landmark called the Cosmic Ashtray is almost guaranteed to be an out-of-this-world experience. It's hard to beat hiking out to this giant meteor crater-looking thing. Climbing into the pit and playing in the dark brown sand makes this one of the coolest destination hikes. But what was once a 4-hour trek through the desert took only 20 minutes thanks to my fancy tarp and strings. With my bird's eye view, I spotted some cool slot canyons as I flew back to home base. After landing, a truck full of guys rolled up and asked if I wanted to hike the slot canyons I'd just flown over. I'd had my share of desert for one day, but they were still fired up when I showed them the aerial footage of the canyons they were about to hike. Whew, not bad.
Oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is my life right now.
Eager to make it to Moab that night, I loaded up and zipped through Capitol Reef National Park. The end of this journey was in sight as I navigated down my favorite road with peak fall colors, drinking my favorite childhood soda pop, cruising past the impressive Factory Butte, and before I knew it, I found myself in Castle Valley for one final flight. I planted my feet and took off running one last time. The air was too rowdy to get up close to Fisher Towers, but it's all about perspective. The horizon revealed an inexplicable, iridescent sky, and it was clear to me that some things are better from a distance.
Weightlessness, no gravity.
This was it, though. The bittersweet ending to something bigger than I could possibly wrap my head around.
I'm a ghost to you, you're a ghost to me. A bird's eye view, a sandal.
I hovered over the sandstone, realizing this flying trip was never truly meant to be about flying at all. This trip was about making connections, something that happened unexpectedly and effortlessly. My camera roll was full, my heart was even fuller, and I'm beyond thankful to freeze these little fragments in time. I still can't explain so many of the events that unfolded out west, but there you have it. A true story, fueled by a sense of adventure and the most impeccable timing.
Shining like the sea for you, the queen of sand.